Hello and welcome to Dice Tower. I'm Wendy Yee.
And I'm Chris Yee.
And we have a pile of Istanbul.
That's what they always say. We're going to do it. We're going to go and do the impossible. The entire video. We're not going to reference that song. That shall not be named.
Oh, this is going to be really hard for me.
I am very well aware, and I also am subject to the whims of the flesh. But we're going to talk about Istanbul in its many, many iterations. This has been a game that's been on my top 100 for a long time. I imagine yours as well, right?
Yeah, and will it remain is the question after we've played a lot of Istanbul this last week or so.
Yep. So let's go ahead and start off our discussion about this pile.
Well, let's go back to the ye far past, to 2014, where Rudiger Dorn first let us all play Istanbul.
This is a decade ago. This wasn't really planned this way. It dawned on me as we're recording this now, like, oh, the game's 10 years old.
10-year anniversary, baby. Well, actually, I don't know when it was released.
Today. It was released to go 10 years ago
Probably a big convention like Essen or something.
Maybe. So this one, I really enjoy the original game of Istanbul a lot. It's been on my top 100 for years. I think pretty much since we did one back in 2018 for sure, because we'd been introduced to it years before that. It was taught to us at our old favorite board game cafe, Mapleville, back in Vegas. Tim, who also happens to run Dice Tower West, was going around. He saw we had a group of 5. He's like, I know the right game for you to play. This was much newer at that time.
Oh, yeah. And it's one of those that I don't always think of that it's a 5-player game. I often think this is a 4-player game, but it does go up to 5, and it plays fine. And I think I still prefer it at lower player counts, but it still works. And in fact, there's more interaction. So I really think depending on how much interaction you want and getting each other's way, that can change depending on the player count.
That matters a lot, yeah. 2-player, which we play this most, we're barely in each other's way.
You've got to do whatever you want. You're like, oh, you're in that space? No, I'm not going to pay you a lira for that. I'm going to go somewhere else. I'll figure it out.
So the general idea of Istanbul is this is one of the first times that I saw what felt like a very meaningfully modular map. So like Settlers of Catan and like older versions of Twilight Imperium had modular maps, modular hex grids and stuff. But this one was actually like different action spaces, 16 of them, get laid out in a different order, and every one of those spaces does something fairly significantly different from the other ones.
Yeah, it's like a worker placement game, and each one of those are a worker placement spot, but instead of having individual workers that you place out, you have a stack of discs, and those discs you move up to 1 or 2 spaces, and then you drop off a disc, or you pick up a disc that you previously placed. So it's not just modular for the sake of being modular, but it really matters because you are placing out workers, and you're trying to what do you call it? Like hopscotching back and forth.
You're hopscotch. I've heard people say like breadcrumbs.
Breadcrumbs,
Hansel and Gretel. Yeah. Like you drop off somewhere, like I'll come back for you later. And sometimes. So anyway, we'll jump back to that. But the point of the game is to race to get 5 gems first. 6 in a 2-player game, and it's just a very clean ending. Whoever gets those first, that's the winner, right? There's no counting up points at the end. There's no surprise like, I was holding onto these 3 victory point cards in my hand. It's just, did you get the gems first? You win. So yeah, it's a very clean, very neat game for that reason. The point I was going to make, one of the things I like about this game, I mean, what really sells it for me, is that idea of breadcrumbs, dropping people off, having to come pick them back up. What a great little idea that it's Mancala-ish, but different.
It is different, and you are playing the setup in a lot of different ways. Like you're looking at the board and whatever this modular setup is, and you're saying, how do I think I can find good paths that work together that I can move back and forth between without running out of workers to get most gems? But one thing I like about this is because you need enough gems, you can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again. It's not one of those games where you're like, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. I went here, I went here, I went here, I went here. You can, but you're probably not going to win because there's a lot of just trying to be as efficient as possible. And so if you're just hopping between these few spaces, you're missing opportunities to get maybe easier gems other places.
And as you mentioned, with a higher player count, you're going to have your stack of merchants. Like there's more of those out on the board. So you don't want to go where other players are because you have to pay them money, especially if you don't want to be the third. And you certainly almost will never be the 4th person in the same spot at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Because then you got to pay out 8 lira bucks. Like, and that's just ridiculous. So so that tension matters.
It does, and the gems get more expensive when you go to, the gem market and those kind of places. So they may cost more money throughout the game or more goods throughout the game, which makes it harder to get, especially with more players as they're picking those off.
But even as a two-player game, I find this one to be so engaging and so fun. It is, it's an exercise in efficiency, but it's fun. You just shake up those tiles. You do a recommended layout or just a random layout with very few construction rules. Like the fountain should be in the middle. The spot where you go to, you get to just like call all your discs back together. It's like your mom yodeling at the end of the night to call all the kids back to the house.
She 100% did that. She sounded like Tarzan. Well, on that note, let's go ahead and move on to the next year in board gaming. 2015. We know that was so long ago.
2015, this came out. Unfortunately, we don't have the separate expansion boxes.
That would be cool. That would make a bigger stack, a bigger pile.
It would be visually more arresting, yes.
Yeah, but the Mocha and Baksheesh expansion came out, and this introduces this idea of gaining coffee. And coffee can be traded in for a few different things, one of them being gems, which that's the whole goal of the game, right? But also there's some upgrade tiles that you can get. There's also this little blocker bar that you can put out so that you can move that through two different spaces next to each other, but everyone else can't on the board. There's some cool things that are added with it.
Yeah, we had to look up the meaning of baksheesh, and it kind of was like money paid for, like political favor type of a thing. A little bit of that underhanded dealing
like
type
bravery
of thing.
kind of thing.
And so that comes through like a little bit in this game where, I put up that blocking post, right? Only I can move through it because I paid the baksheesh. But what I do like about Istanbul is it has that very simple framework. And then this adds 4 more spaces, so it adds more variety when you mix up the map. And it feels bigger. It certainly does. But then those tiles, the upgrade powers that you can get from paying coffee, allow you to move across the map further. In a straight line, move as many spaces as you'd like. Little things like that. Or
little discounts when you interact with some different people on the map that give you stuff.
Right. I enjoy those. The original Istanbul had those mosque tiles that were upgrades, and I find myself, usually leaning into at least one of those per game. So just having a few more of those upgrade tiles, I think is a nice touch. This expansion, the Mocha and Baksheesh one, doesn't feel like it adds too much, while still adding enough to say, like, ooh, it feels different.
Another thing that I really like is that when you go to, so there's 2 card locations in this one instead of 1, but when you go to either card location, that's a way to get the mocha, that's a way to get the little coffee bean bags. But then the one that they add in, the extra set of cards that are specifically for this expansion, are like whole actions.
Yeah.
That's what I think is cool. The other ones are like, hey, you get this perk, you get 5 lira, sweet. Or I get, some extra movement, I can move 4 spaces. But this one is like, do a whole nother action. Like there's a whole thing you're doing. It's pretty exciting.
That's one of the strengths of this game, I think, is that it's always had those action cards. This one has even stronger action cards, but instead of being a bonus, they take up your whole turn, like you said. And the tension of either of those is brilliant in this game. A game that is very methodical. I move 1 or 2 spaces, drop off a guy. Your stack is getting low. I know that you're going to have to go back to one of the action spaces you've been to before. But having those special power cards is just like an exciting mix-up where one of the bonus ones might be as simple as like grab any one of those merchants somewhere on the map and like whoop, slide them right under your guy. Guess what? You have more momentum than you thought, or than the opponents thought.
Yeah.
But those ones that replace a whole turn can be like wildly powerful.
They can, because you maybe can't get over to the spot where you could normally get those things. Maybe I can't get over to a spot where I can get more mocha, but I'm over here where I want to spend it and trade it in for rubies. Oh, I have this card that lets me get some. I have this card that lets me do a thing. And that is pivotal. And
that's important in a map that has gotten bigger. Like, I can't get to the tea house to do my gambling. By the way, every time I play this, I'm going to the tea house. You get to roll 2 dice. I love this little bit of like push your luck mini game. Say a number. If you roll higher than that with your 2 dice, you get that many coins. If not, then you only get 2. And I'm always like, ooh, 7's the safe bet. But what if I said 9?
But you still get something. Otherwise, I'd be super stressful.
I really like that.
Also, one of the base upgrades is you can always change a die, like one of those dice to a 4. So you're like, cool, I rolled 3, 4, and I said 8. And that 3 is now 4. Ha-ha!
Right.
There's good moments.
So the Mocha expansion gives you a little bit more of that type of stuff. Like, do the gambling den or do the tea house like twice. You're like, yes, that's what I want to do. So that was the 2015 expansion, Mocha and Baksheesh. Mm-hmm. The 2016 expansion that came out, Letters and Seals.
This one we just played. So this one's new to us. It was one that, I don't know, we just didn't have access to?
Yeah.
Until the Dice Tower Library?
Yeah, I don't remember if our Board Game Cafe had it or not. We bought a copy of Istanbul used that came with the Mocha expansion in there. Mm-hmm. So we played that a lot, and we've played that a lot, two players especially. But we never ended up getting the Letters and Seals one for some reason. So it was very exciting, actually, in preparation for this video, being like, let's do it. Let's finally play it.
Yeah. So it's fascinating. So it adds these letters and these seals that you're trying to get. And so basically you go to certain spots and they give you letters and they have a single seal on them and they have a number, a space number. And if you ever go to that space with that number, you then get to flip it over and it becomes 2 seals. And those seals can be traded in for a variety of things the way you trade in Mocha. So it can be worth gems. It can be worth some different abilities here and there.
Yeah, and so it has this little bit of a feel of like a pick up and deliver, right? I picked up some letters. If I deliver them, I get a little reward. It's weird that my reward is more seals, but wave that away. I
assume that the seals just represent like the people that you've helped, your influence, kind of thing. So you're like, hey, you're like, yes, I will deliver your letter for you, and they're like, great. I look fondly on you. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, see, look, I helped this person. And then when you deliver it, the person you deliver to also looks fondly on you. And you have like 2 seals of approval from people that you've been a good mail carrier for.
Dice Tower, seal of approval. Deliver my letters.
Yeah.
So I really like that because you can spend 3 seals to do a second turn, which feels like one of those big kind of, like gotcha type things. Because this game is always an efficiency race, right?
Right.
At some point, I think the biggest complaint about Istanbul is at some point you can say, Wendy's 2 turns away from winning. I'm 3 turns away from winning. So Wendy's won it.
Wendy's won it.
But with the ability to have invested to get extra seals, to be like, I can take 2 actions in a row, so I'm actually ahead of the curve in this situation. Yeah. I like that.
I do. It's interesting because when one of the main spaces where you get the seals, you get 2 letters. And so when I think I spent a whole action to get 2 seals, but if I upgrade those just automatically amidst what I do, that can be an extra turn. If I do that a couple times, it's one of those that it's like, I don't feel like I'm going to regularly use it for an extra turn because you have to work at it. And so you're giving up some time to maybe get that bonus time. But I think it could also just come in handy.
And you can trade in 6 seals for a gem. Mm-hmm. And it's not just that you get a gem, but as you mentioned with the basic game, the spots where you get the gems, the victory points, every time you take one from off the board, you're making it more expensive for the next person who goes there. Mm-hmm. It costs that 1 extra coin that they don't have all of a sudden.
Right.
You threw a huge monkey wrench in their gears.
Yeah, they had 2 red goods, and now they need a 3rd red good.
Yeah.
Massive. And so,
I like that.
This one particularly, you pull it off of somewhere else that a gem already exists.
And I think the Mocha one has a similar thing. You trade in 6 Mocha, and you pull it off of one of those market spaces. So it's, both feel very cohesive to the base game, which I think is important for a expansion to a game that's already very clean.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, you can mix both of these expansions.
Oh, you can. And we did.
We did.
Okay, this is one thing about the letters and seals. A lot of the cards and a lot of the benefits allow you to get extra movement things. So you can get stuff that lets you, jump across the whole board. You're like, I can move as many spaces as I want in one direction kind of thing. Or I can just spend $3 and hop somewhere. So there's a lot of benefits for movement because you're trying to get the numbers.
Right. True. Because you want to get to space 11 to flip that.
So you're trying to get around.
You have 2 11s. You absolutely want to get there and flip both of them over.
You also have this special square dude, the letters and seals dude that's your color.
The square dude goes, that's right, in the square hole.
So when you go to the fountain, you unlock him, and then he can go to a space where you are currently at. You can drop him off. And then from that point on, he can take an action instead of your characters by moving 1 space. He just can't go as far, and he doesn't drop off stuff or pick stuff up. He just works independently. But that is so cool to me.
Well, he can do the letter interactions. He doesn't meet with like the little bonus, get a coffee guy.
Right, and he can only move 1 space. But then you have 2 sets of workers throughout the board, being able to move around and meet those letter objectives. So movement is so much of a theme here with this idea of delivering letters. And I think that thematically, they tied the mechanics in really well.
Yeah, in a cute way that you're like, hey, yeah, that's my buddy. He's going to help me out.
All right, now let's talk about the 25.
Yes, so both expansions have a way that help with the board growth by throwing in 4 more tiles, but also giving you more movement. You can mix both of them together. And I first heard that and I thought, I doubt I ever actually want to do that. But we did, for science.
Now, if you do the math, you realize that if you use every tile from all the different boards...
16 from the base, 4 and 4.
Yeah, that's not 25. That's not a 5x5 grid. So they have an extra tile that you add in just for this big, massive scenario.
So you mix the two together, you use the coffee, you use the envelopes, you use the big blocker piece, right? You do all of the stuff in it. You have a huge map that just feels unwieldy. But I was surprised. I was actually surprised how much I enjoyed it still because you
crushed me.
Well, you have the mix of the extra movement from the Mocha in Baksheesh expansion. You have that extra companion, the square guy, from the Letters and Seals one. And so what feels like it should be a completely unmanageable map, you can actually manage pretty decently. You
can. It definitely is a lot to take in to be able to look at that whole map and go, okay, what do I want to do first? Because this is one of those games where you can do a ton of stuff first, but also, a lot of those spaces are better after you've done something previously. You're like, oh, I can go get goods. Or I could upgrade so I can hold more goods and then go get goods.
I want to patch this giant hole in my wheelbarrow that I have for some reason.
Right. Or I could get an upgrade that'll make it easier for me to get the wheelbarrow to get more goods. But I need goods first to get that upgrade. It's just that it's so fun trying to figure out like your plan. But when you have those 25 tiles, you're just like, I don't know what to do first. Maybe I'll go get a card. Maybe that'll tell me what to do.
Yeah. So we played this for the first, because obviously we hadn't played the Letters and Seals until just this last week or two. And then we're doing the big mega combined thing. I enjoyed a lot of aspects of it. However, I think one of the things that it weakens with the whole package is the Letters and Seals themselves, because you draw some envelopes that are like, go to space 9, and you're like, nope, that's not going to happen. You know what I mean? The spaces are so far apart from each other that you have less opportunity to just casually go and upgrade your envelopes to the double seal side that you do just playing it with just the one expansion, I think.
I think so, and it almost feels like you have to specialize more in such a big board. Because normally in the regular game or in the other expansions, I'll be like, sure, I'll do some goods, I'll do some money, I'll do some Mocha, maybe I'll do some seals, whatever. Like, you just kind of decide on doing a lot of little things, and it's fun. But in the big map, it's like too big to do everything. Because if you want to really focus on upgrading the goods in your cart and getting a lot of goods so you can get those good gems versus the bad ones, then you're like, I have to do all this over here, and I have to work over here. And in that time, you don't really have time to go around and get money too, and get money upgrades, and get, Like, there's just too much to do, I think, in that big map. You have to focus in a little bit more.
Efficiency has always been the name of the game, but more so when you have just a wide swath of options, and you say, I can't really get distracted with cool things along the way. Yeah,
you can waste so much time doing everything that you don't get anything done.
It's not the mode that I necessarily want to play, but now that we have played it a few times, I would be happy to come back to it every once in a while. To just kind of feel like, let's do mega game. Why? I don't know. Because we can.
Because we can. And there's so many games that have done the whole mega thing, and it doesn't really work. But this works.
This one works.
This works.
There you go. So that was 2016's Letters and Seals mixed with everything else.
And then what was the big box? When did the big box come out?
The big box came out 2018.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Could you mix them pre-big box?
Yeah.
Or is the big box when you got that extra special tile?
Nope.
So what did the tile come in with?
No, it came in with the Letters and Seals, with the second expansion.
Okay, this makes sense. Okay.
Yep.
I understand now.
Let's jump ahead to 2017, and this bad boy came out, Istanbul, the dice game, not a roll and write.
It was not. That's correct. It was a literal dice game.
Yep. You might notice that the cover of this particular one is dirty. I didn't notice that until I brought it in this morning.
Oh, hey.
And that's because we actually We actually just threw the dice game in our copy of Istanbul because it fits in there with the Mocha expansion and the dice game. Mm-hmm. And we're like, one box, right? Why not?
It fits.
And
it would fit in the big box with all the expansions and the dice game.
It really would.
Space to spare.
It's kind of a slight game. The box is a little bit bigger than need be. So the only reason that we kept this box is because Wendy decided, hey, this is a really good box.
It fits DVDs quite nicely.
Yeah, it fits like our DVDs.
Our CDs.
And our Nintendo 3DS games. And so
all of our old technology that we can't seem to get rid of because maybe someday we'll use it again.
I like DVDs. I like digital, physical media. But anyway,
we have a DVD player.
This box has not held the actual components for the game in years.
But conveniently, we had the lid, so we were able to bring it and add it to our pile, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
So in Istanbul, the dice game, instead of having discs underneath you that are your little worker people, you have dice. And so you roll 5 dice every round, and you choose 2 actions to take. And based on the dice that you have revealed, it depends on the strength of the action. So if you have, if you're trying to trade in resources to get gems, you want to have a lot of resources showing so that you can get the proper amounts. Maybe you need 3 yellows to get a gem, or you need 1 of each color, that kind of thing. And so what I like about it is that you're rolling those dice. Do you get a couple re-rolls?
No, you get no free rerolls in this game.
1 roll, but you can trade gems in for rerolls.
You can do the
a special gem.
There's a reroll gem and then the victory point gems.
Yeah. And so it's just there's this fascinating. Do we have it here? We have it. There's fascinating little trade in chart thing that I think is really cool because you're probably not going to roll exactly what you need to trade in for something. You're not just going to roll 5 blues. The odds of that are very slim.
Right.
Especially on a single roll, right? But there's this little chart here for depending on what combination you get, you can trade them in and you can bank things. You can bank a good of your choice. You can bank a good of those matching colors. You can bank things that you use later so that you can trade in to get the stuff that you want.
I think that's neat because it does a good job of being a dice game. Mm-hmm. Not just a dice approximation of the board game. It doesn't do any of the movement stuff. It doesn't do any of those things that I would say isn't that integral to an Istanbul game? But what it does carry over is that you can buy the different gems by spending goods or by spending money, and you take the gems off of the physical main board, and you're making it more expensive for the next person to do it. The difference between paying 3 red goods and 4, or paying 4 instead of 5, is significant. Yeah. And you still have that tension. You might not call it interaction, but player tension from one to the next.
Yeah, so you're not moving around. It's not the efficiency game in the sense of I need to find the perfect pattern location, but it's instead you're trying to build a little bit of an engine. You're getting some powers, these tiles you can put out in front of you to make action stronger. And then you're just trying to figure out what gems can you get for the cheapest prices to win the game.
Still that efficiency race. But I really like the power of those mosque tiles in this game. Whereas in the original, they let you, change the die or reroll dice or let you move a little bit extra, stuff like that. In this one, they let you roll extra dice. They let you take extra actions. They give you permanent, income every round. Those mosque tiles are so important in the dice game. And so it's fun that there are these ties. There are these little callbacks to the original. But they made a wholly different game, which I respect. I like this one a lot. Not as much as the original, but I still enjoy Istanbul the Dice Game.
Yeah, this one I like a ton. Very happy with it.
So that was 2017. The big box came out in 2018, and it kind of pulled together a few things. I think there might be one little extra variant, the caravan tile, the little extra tile that came in the big box. Nothing too drastic. And then the Istanbul line went quiet for a few years.
It did.
Until last year, Istanbul Choose and Write came out.
I choose to write about Istanbul.
I don't even know if this was last year available in the U.S. or not, but Board Game Geek dates it at 2023.
That's true.
And so this one is it's not a roll and write either. It's a choose and write.
That's right. Because you don't roll. Instead, you have cards in your hands. You have action cards. You play one. And then everyone can choose to follow if they have
free
spot.
follow action.
Yeah, follow
spots.
action spots that they can do.
Yeah.
But the card that you play it doesn't have to be the action that you take. Hey, look, I have more visuals. Ha ha!
You say this like I'm not going to be putting up pictures so everyone can follow along.
Oh, you're right. Anyways, visuals. So you can take, like, if it says I'm going to do action D, I can take action D, or I can take anything orthogonally adjacent to it as well, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, so you can do that as the card chooser, and the other followers can. So maybe on D, there's no follow free circle available for me to cross off, but there is next to me, right? Or if I choose not to actually follow your action, I get to mark off something on the other side of the sheet that says I get a free follow action in the future.
Later, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a clever little method to do it, right? So you play one card, you do it, everybody does it, and then you draw a replacement card. The next person goes. That's why it says choose and write. And so I appreciate that. I appreciate there's no dice. It's not as lucky necessarily. But still, you might have that luck where you don't have the action cards or the space you actually want to go to. So you're kind of dependent. You're hoping that other players will give you that available option to do so.
Sure. I feel like this game still holds on to that Istanbul identity because you're trying to get gems. You know, you get a certain amount of gems and you win. It has those specific action spaces. So visually on the little roll and write board that you're playing on, it looks like Istanbul. It uses that artwork. It uses similar ideas and goods and stuff. And so I feel like it holds a lot to that core of what it is, while making it a different game.
And this is one of those cases where I don't love this different game. I really liked Istanbul Dice Game because it wasn't afraid to be different but have those homages and those callbacks.
Yeah.
This one, as you said, does the same thing, but I don't find it as enjoyable to play. And it might be something as silly as part of it is affected by the fact I don't get to grab little red gems. I like the little red gems, right? Circling them on my player sheet doesn't feel as satisfying. You have to hit more of them in this game. So each gem is easier to get, but also you have to get more of them, so it feels a little bit more rinse and repeat. You know, okay, time to collect a bunch of goods again. Now I trade them in. All right, get some more goods again. Now I trade them in.
Yeah.
Whereas in the other Istanbul games, it feels like each gem you get is like an exciting reward for effort.
I think part of this, it doesn't have that dynamic market of, oh, someone took a gem, everything gets more expensive.
It kind of does with the goods. You tuck the extra card, to do the cost.
That's true. I guess those do. But the gems that you get just for having a certain amount of money or a certain amount of gems, like those kind of like side ways of getting gems, don't get more expensive.
And that doesn't feel super satisfying. Like, I collected 15 coins. I get a free gem. You're like, okay, cool. It does a little bit of that roll and write type cascading benefits for doing things. But Istanbul was never, for me, like a cascading type game. It's about, did you set things up correctly? Ooh, what's your next move going to be? Ha ha! And so maybe that's why, for me, this one doesn't work as well. Is because it's trying to be those two different things that, for me, doesn't quite gel the way I was hoping it would.
I think I like it more than you do.
Okay.
I would give it a slightly higher score. Because I think the card play is interesting and that follow mechanism, because you're not locked in to what other people have decided to play.
People play 11. You don't have to do 11.
Right. And you don't have like a handful of cards you get to pick actions from. You have like 2 cards or sometimes 1 card. One card, right? Is 3?
3, I think.
Anyways, you have just a few cards that you get to play from. So you don't have tons of choices. But because each one of those cards also has 4 or 5 adjacent actions that you can play, you do have tons of choices. And it feels like, oh, I'm stuck on this side of the board. Oh, I'm stuck on this side of the board. So I think thematically, they did a really good job tying those things in.
When you say thematically, you mean like to Istanbul, the board game.
To Istanbul, yeah. To keep the blood flowing. You know what I mean? It feels like it's tied in enough. I don't feel like it's just, hey, someone made up a dice game and they threw Istanbul on it.
Sure.
I feel like it's got some good of the past mixed in.
Yeah. I don't love it, but that being said, this is the first one that you can solo. It comes in this little box, so it's not too big of an investment or anything. I feel like for me, it's a step down. It's a step down compared to the other games in the line. And it might be that I have such high regard for both Istanbul and its 2 expansions and its dice game that I was really hoping this one would capture me in kind of the same way.
Okay.
So, yeah, maybe this one just needs some more plays or something to kind of shake out.
Maybe there you go.
But yeah, this is a line of games that I've enjoyed, for a decade now. I think that we played this when it was pretty fresh and pretty new, actually.
We did. And I have to say, after playing this, 4 or 5 times this last week, just to remind her and refresh about some of these things and play some of the new modules and whatever, I still want to play it again. You know what I mean? This is one of those games I feel like you could regularly pull out and you wouldn't get sick of it. And that is something that's really nice.
It's huge. Yeah, I could see why it won the Kennerspiel, and I could see why people still should be playing this and talking about this today. Mm-hmm. One of the variants that we've played since just the basic box is that with your little stack of merchants.
Oh, yeah.
You can play with a neutral color on the bottom of both players' stack, one of the non-used characters. And that one is just, it doesn't belong to anyone, and so other players can come by and pick up the merchant guy that you dropped off.
And it's always on the bottom, and so your first couple actions, you're like, okay, where do I want to go that I don't think someone else is going to go and steal my piece?
Yeah, it's this game has variants in the back of the box that I adore, and I love, and I play with. The Caravansary one, where if you're the only person who goes to the spot, you get to draw extra cards and keep them until someone else comes there. These are little variants, but they're ones that I will throw in because I feel like they make the game just exciting, even for people who have been playing it for a decade.
Oh, yeah. So it's very enjoyable. So Istanbul, there you go. That's our pile of games right there. I just think they all get good scores from me.
Yeah, like I said, the choose and write the lowest for me.
And I think it's the lowest for me as well. Mm-hmm. But they're still good, solid games.
Yeah, I do adore this one. So expect to see it in my top 100 still.
Well, thanks for joining us today. I'm Wendy Yee.
And I'm Chris Yee.
Tell us what you think about this pile of games.